A warm, arid breeze blanketed the scenery. The sea of tans and greens rippled and waved like water. A earthly, homely scent wafted in the zebra's slowly dilating nostrils. She had her eyes closed, but she could imagine the sparse trees dot the landscape of the plains of her homeland. The wind also carried its sounds, the sounds of the elephants, mingling loudly as they refreshed themselves in a watering hole. The cacophony of wildebeest thumping in the distance in the form of a large herd. She could taste the adrenaline of the cheetah, the fastest runner alive, walked an age-old battle of predator and prey. She breathed in slowly, then exhaled slowly, maintaining her inner peace as she sat stagnantly on a wild flat rock. The sun warmed her coat as the breeze cooled it. This was a moment of absolute serenity. Her ears twitched. Something was moving in the grass. She could feel it. The disturbance was like a rock shattering the smooth surface of a glassy pond. It reverberated her spine, a spike of annoyance hitting her brain. No. She must keep her tranquility. Nothing was there. No moving creature, large or small, was supposed to be near her. The elephants, the wildebeest, the cheetah, and his prey, they were all leagues away. She was alone. It was only her mind playing tricks, the part of her that does not wish to be calm. She would exert herself to keep her balance. Her concentration increased, the distraction would remove itself in time. But it did not. The tan stalks twitched again, agitating the air around it, dispatching yet another ripple of disturbance toward her. Her heart started to beat a little faster. Something was indeed wrong. This was no mere illusion. No, nothing is here. But it has to be something. It had to be something. It is not receding. It'll go away in time, just like any other distraction. All it does is patience. All it takes is patience. You are too confident of yourself. What if it does not mean well to your being? What if it wants your blood? You will not break my peace. She fought to keep herself placid, her mind straining like a taut string. It is only a trick. Only a trick. The wrestling became more intense. She thought she could smell the putrid breath of a meat-eater, a predator. No, it is only a ruse. It is only a ruse. She gritted her teeth at a very ledge of disruption. You're in danger. You must react. You must flee before it is too late. She could feel the beast slowly licking its lips and tensing its muscles, preparing to pounce on the zebra. The ignorant, oblivious zebra that was too self-confident to prevent her own death. There's nothing there. There's nothing there. There's nothing there. She was wobbling now, her balance way out of sync. It was only a matter of time. Finally, she could bear it no longer. She broke her meditation, turning towards the disturbance. Her eyes widened. She tried to release the shriek. There was a flash of pointy ivory teeth, outstretched claws, blood-red eyes. Zecora fell off her balancing staff and onto the wooden floor of her dank hut with a yelp. She cursed in Zebrani, while massaging her flank she landed on. A burst of wooziness engulfed her as blood rushed out of her head and recirculated throughout the rest of her body. When she regained her focus, she could see her familiar wood carvings and fetishes that hung on her walls. She could smell the ever-present humidity of ever-free forest, the sound of buzzing insects, the smell of her bubbling pot. Zecora sighed inwardly. Her meditation was broken, and she could not attempt it again for at least a few more hours, not while she was shaken from the interruption. She picked herself up and rested her staff against the nearby wall before checking in the cauldron. The vicious green-colored liquid boiled over a crackling fire. She tossed a few crushed herbs into the mixture, making it gurgle and emit a savvy, minty smell. Zecora was just about to add another reagent when her head perked up. A sensation of dread pierced her once again, the feeling of another heavy presence. It bored into her. It bored into her back like a biting parasite. The zebra cleared her mind and filtered out a familiar background noises. Gone was the tripping of insects, the bubbling of pots, the cawing of the birds. All that remains was her own breath, and another sound of breathing. Deep, throaty, and angry. Unnatural fear penetrated into Zikora's bones. She began to tremble. Her chest thumped loudly. Slowly and carefully she walked to her rudimentary wooden door. The door creaked open and she stepped out into the perpetual dim forest clearing. Barely any light penetrated the thick canopy of earthy forest. It was only dark and darker, depending on the time of day. Zikora scanned the tree line around her, looking for the shapes of the creatures that populated the forest. She was no fool, nor was she a weakling. Her decision to live in the air free and pursue peace and enlightenment was not an impulsive or unprepared one. Zikora was a skilled fighter, taught by her tribe back in her native homeland, Zabrain. When she first came here, she was immediately attacked by timber wolves. After a quick and intense brawl, they fled back into the sanctitude of the thick trees. But they have returned before, and she has defended herself more than once. But this did not sound like a timber wolf. They snarled and howled, but they did not have this caliber of deep breathing that would belong to a much larger creature. It couldn't be a manicore. They did not wander far into this part of the forest. She turned and followed the sound. Terror seized her limbs, disallowing her to go any faster than a crawl. Her eyes dilated, searching in darkness for any movement. She found it. Zikora could not describe it. Idling right there on the edge of the clearing was a massive shape, heaving with each deep gargled breath. Pock marks dotted its swollen body. It reeked of blood and vomit. The zebra froze, attempting to collect her panicking thoughts, trying hard not to pant. She slowly and ever so carefully stepped back. Snap! The thing reared its head towards Zikora, a dry twig and 2 parts under her hoof. It stared into the mortified zebra's eyes. His face was something that Zikora would never forget the rest of her life, even years from this moment. She thought she would sometimes wake up in a cold sweat, shrieking, and the demented image burned into her corneas. Horror, torment, rage, death. It was all these things twisted into unholy, nightmarish visage that was so absolutely and utterly wrong. It was missing its jaw. Useless, pale flesh and tendons hung limply alongside of its lolling tongue. Flapping with each massive exhale, its skin had thinned and receded, defining the edges of its cheekbones and darkened eye sockets. Its hair was patchy and sparse. Crusty black scabs covered the areas of baldness where the strands and scalp had been ripped out in a fit of feverish mindlessness. The eyes, those terrible monstrous eyes, they were stained yellow where it should have been white. The pupils were contracted to mere pinheads. Red veins bulged and throbbed through them. They were devoid of any thought, any empathy, any sentience. Zikora did not know what it was, but she could tell that it had once been something else. But it had been warped into a hideous monster. Tewalai! The beast roared, spewing rancid breath in Zikora's direction. With one glancing swing of its arm, it shattered a nearby hollowed, rotting tree trunk, as if it was only a stack of crusted sand. Fine dusty splinters billowed out of like a fog. It slammed its other fist into the ground, making the zebra vibrate in place. It roared again, its face completely motionless and unfeeling, like a mask of pestilence and decay over this essence of seething hatred. It dug its meaty fingers into the earth and launched forward in a charge towards its shrieking prey. Zikora screamed, unreserved, all rationality gone. Only terror and instinct remained. She stumbled and scrambled on her hooves, sprinting in the opposite direction. She ran until her muscles caterwauled in agony. She ran until she had no physical energy left in her body, yet she ran on. The beast, like a single-minded predator, thundered after her through the forest. Ellis felt something warm and wet brush across his face. He snorted awake and found a small dog panting smelly dog breath into his face. Ellis remembered her name. It was Winona, Applejack's loyal companion. Her thought is strange. He thought it's strange. He thought it's strange that ponies would have pet dogs, but it was also strange that they could talk, fly, use magic. He concluded that he just shouldn't question anything anymore. Ellis gently nudged the small canine off of his chest and rose out his cramped, pony-sized, not quite human-sized bed. He sat on the edge and rubbed the crust out of his eyes. He checked the clock. 5:45. The earliest he had ever been up since he had a job. Ellis groaned, muscles aching from the stress of yesterday. Orange morning sunshine radiated brightly through the guest bedroom window. He got up and stretched, arms straining outwards, back arcing. His washed clothes, courtesy of Applejack, sat on the nightstand. He had taken a shower the night before. It was his first shower in what seemed like forever. Not like he gave a damn about hygiene, but it felt good anyhow. When he was all clean, he hadn't bothered to put his clothes back on to sleep. He might have been embarrassed to be completely naked in front of Winona, but she was a dog, and dogs don't really care about modesty. Even now, she thumped her tail on the floor like she would do even if Ellis had been fully clothed. After he thoroughly blinked off most of his drowsiness, he turned around. The wide-eyed Applum sat right there. Yeah! Ellis quickly yanked the bed sheets off and used them to cover himself. Apple Blue, can't you give a guy some privacy? Why, we don't usually wear clothes. The young filly tilted her head in a dog-like confusion, completely oblivious to Ellis's discomfort. Well, I do. It's a human thing. Ellis groaned. He had been using a term "human thing" for all her questions he couldn't answer, or refused to answer because he ain't old enough. She honestly couldn't understand what the big deal was with wearing clothes. She wore clothes once. It was uncomfortable and chafed against her coat. She refused to wear anything but her bow tie from that day on. Applejack sent me to get you out of bed for breakfast. Winona wanted to come along too. She looked at her sister's companion. Ain't that right, girl? The dog barked exuberantly. Her tongue wagged from her mouth. Please, Apple, sweetheart. Ellis implored, trying not to sound rude or forceful. I need to just leave a bit. I need you to just leave a bit so I can get dressed, okay? She couldn't figure out why he doesn't want to be seen naked, but she nodded an okay and headed for the door, coaxing Winona to come along with her. When she passed the door frame, she turned back and peeked inside to ask Hugh yet another question. Hey, Ellis? Does it always dangle out like that? His face turned red hot. Just shut the door, Bloom. Ellis, now fully clothed in his signature coveralls and bull shifter's shirt, walked into the kitchen. The smell of cooked food filled his nostrils, which made his stomach growl. Applejack stood in front of the cooking range. Her mouth held a frying pan and a hot pad, jiggling it over the flames as its contents sizzled in Teflon coating. Her nose was wrinkled. She noticed a human walk in and set thick cloth on the counter. Why the hell do you humans eat this stuff? Plain. I'll never know. It smells like hog. Different strokes for different folks, AJ. He looked at the skillet. I can probably take it from here. In the pan were 2 eggs, cooking on a layer of butter. Ellis took a spatula and flipped them over to the uncooked side. He liked his eggs fairly well done. Explaining his food preferences to the pony wasn't too difficult. The first thing he had to worry about was Applejack thinking that he was insulting her cooking. He explained it delicately that he could, which isn't saying much, that humans eat more than just fruits, veggies, and grains. He suspected that Big Macintosh was first to get his meaning, him being the most mature of the family. Applejack had few problems with it. She knew that some animals, like that Fluttershy took care of, like bears and eagles, ate other animals too. Applejack really couldn't understand the concept of eating other living things, but also reiterated that he didn't necessarily need to do so. See, this is my buddy Keith. Dared me to do a vegan for a few months. What's a vegan? Had Ablum had asked. It's a human that doesn't eat meat or anything that comes from animals. Like for me, I knew a chick who did the same thing. She gave me pointers on what to eat and get my proteins and shit. It was kind of hard, but I got through it all right. Then, since I did that, I dared Keith back to ride a shopping cart down Salem Hill. That didn't end well. Oh boy! But Ellis didn't have to go full vegan. The ponies used animal products like eggs and cow milk. The former almost exclusively for baking. It was fine for them to eat, even though they don't need any useful nutrients. Gain useful nutrients out of them. So that made eggs out source of amino acids for him. After more than a month of an urban survivalist diet, he wasn't complaining. So late night, he showed Applejack how to make fried eggs and ate that instead. Last night, Applebloom got his uneaten casserole. In essence, the whole problem blew over without much trouble at all. Alice worried that they might have been scared or shunning him for his natural eating habits, or some other irrational, overly dramatic reaction that would have conflicted in a flow and pacing of his fanfiction, as well as the overarching long-term character development. Deal with it! Ellis turned off the burner and scooped the 2 eggs onto a piece of toast, added some cheese, and completed with another piece of toast. A simple egg sandwich, one of his favorite breakfasts. The wooden legs of the chair groaned as he sat down and pulled himself closer to the table. Applejack sat across from him, chewing on a bowl of honey oats as he bit into his food and chewed noisily. The herbivore grimaced. So, Ellis, she tried to take her mind off the disgusting, salty, slimy smell of his food. I heard Appleblom caught you naked this morning. He coughed softly before swallowing the bite. Yeah, it's probably best if that doesn't happen no more, he continued, knowing that the pony would inevitably ask him. We humans have been wearing clothes so much that we really can't be seen without them. I wish I could tell why, but I really don't know myself. Applejack nodded, reaching a rudimentary understanding. Well, I was washing them last night, and I found a few things in your pockets. He pointed to a wooden bowl where the contents of Ellis' clothes were placed. Taking a closer look, he saw that his lighter was among them. Ellis didn't smoke, but he used it to light pipe bombs and Molotovs. Next to that, his wallet was an unfired shotgun round and an adrenaline shot. So what are these for anyway? Applejack queried. He started with a lighter, flicked open the metal lid, and sparked a small flame to life. This here's a lighter. It makes flame. I know what a lighter is, Applejack interrupted, and I know what that's a wallet too. But what about those 2 things? Oh, he gestured to the shot. It was about a hand-length orange with a white cap, a label with fine lettering printed on the side. This is adrenaline shot. You take off the cap, use the needle, and inject yourself with some kind of chemical that gives you a burst of energy. You see, it's handy for when you need to get it away fast. From zombies? Applejack suddenly finished. She still had a hard time fully accepting his story, but she didn't think about it too much. And this, he held a heavy plastic cylinder. It has a brass cap on one end, and it was pinched off at the other. The pony didn't discern any possible purpose for it. This is a shotgun shell. Ammunition. Where have I heard that before? She tried to bring up the information from her farthest memory banks, but she just couldn't nudge it loose. But she didn't have to ask Ellis to continue. You know, it's for a gun? She shook her head. The human side. Okay, you put this sucker in a metal barrel and hit this. He pointed the tiny round top on the center of the brass cap with the firearm pin. That ignited the power and propelled the buckshot out of the barrel. Abject scratched her head. What in the hay does that accomplish? It's for killing, he started matter-of-factly. The Earth Pony suddenly remembered where she had heard ammunition before. Cannons. Pipsqueak had talked about them on Nightmare Night. He told Applejack about swashbuckling pirates who would get into sea-based battles with cannons, which were used to sink and disable other ships. He said he knew just about everything about pirates, including their weaponry and how cannons needed ammunition to fire. What Ellis must have been talking about was a cannon on a smaller scale, one that could be held in his hand. But since I don't have a gun, this thing is just another paperweight that you gotta keep away from open flame. I don't really remember why I pocketed this thing in the first place, to be honest. He looked at Jack. Do I have to let you confiscate this too? I'm not looking to take all your stuff away, Ellis. If it's harmless as you say it is, then you can keep it. Well, okay. He pocketed the shot, adrenaline, and lighter. He hesitated before stowing his wallet away. Considering that this world has an entirely different currency, his paper was useless here. I don't think I need this anymore. He tossed a black leather trifold to Abject's direction. You can give that apple bloom for her to look at. She smiled. That's awfully nice of you, Ellis. He finished the last bite of his breakfast. Just don't let her wake me up anymore. The walk to Ponyville was a surprisingly quiet one, to Abject's relief. Ellis couldn't recall any more new interesting stories to tell. Instead, he answered more questions about each other. They answered more questions about each other until they reached the library, where she was to show the human to his workplace. Abject didn't necessarily need to walk Ellis to Ponyville, but Granny Smith's old gardening tools needed to be reforged. The wrought iron was the closest smith that could do it. She didn't mind being in Ellis's for a little while longer. His charm was starting to grow on her. They reached the library where Twilight and Spike were waiting outside the front door. The latter rested on the porch, his stubby legs dangling over the cobblestone. The lavender unicorn saw the two and waved them over to her. Hey, Ellis. You ready for work? Twilight, I was born ready, he responded confidently. Good here. Come with me. You're working with the West District first. She led the human and her assistant to the direction of the scaffolding. I'll leave you all to it and come to get you when the day's done, Applejack called after, turning them part ways and leaving them to their work. Ellis and Twilight waved goodbye as they shrank into the distance. The Earth Pony finally broke her line of sight and turned to trot off to the smithy. She got a strange sense of disorientation, like the last time she left his side. A melancholy feeling of emptiness, and as his explicit presence was suddenly muted. And all that remained was the deafening familiarity of Ponyville. The Ponyville that was always present day after day after day. The denizens would go about their tried and true routines. They would craft their goods and work their services. They would go to the market to buy and trade the barter. They would smile and say hi to as others passed by with their business. But then they would be back to work. No pony would be there to tell her a joke or a story, to listen to what she had to say when she wanted to be heard. No pony would be there to laugh and smile with her while she worked. It was just business. Abject reprimanded herself for such careless thinking. She had a loving family and 5 of the best friends any pony could ask for. She loved her work and welcomed the humble familiarity of the everyday. For Celestia's sake. She only just met Ellis yesterday. So why does she feel so alone? Ellis, Twilight, and her assistant strolled along the streets of the town. The human's presence caught a lot of attention from the pony folk. They all waved and pointed like he was a celebrity. A group of rambunctious foals giggled and played at his feet, which Twilight had to solve by gently levitating them away so they wouldn't accidentally get hurt by Ellis's heavy stride. He was preoccupied with waving back at all the onlookers. Finally, they came upon a building that appeared to have had its roof torn off or smashed in by some incredible force. Hey, Twy, Ellis began. What exactly caused this damage? Here. Uh, an accident, she replied, keeping the real reason vague for Spike's sake. The baby dragon looked down at the ground and kicked at the dirt. Shame burned into his face. Accident my ass. This looks like the work of some giant monster. Well, Twilight attempted to think of an evasion, but Ellis continued. It's a giant monster attack if I ever seen one. Let me tell you, in my opinion, them giant monsters got no heart or soul to speak of. Stop around like they own the place, smashing the good, honest work of good, honest people, leaving them broken, homeless just 'cause they can. It's just plain evil, man. Spike was trembling and looked as though he was on the verge of weeping. Ellis, it's not important. Twilight interrupted. We're here to meet your coworkers, remember? Oh yeah, that's right. They circled around to the other side of the building where two hard hat wearing ponies have already begun work early. One was a unicorn with an ochre coat and a sandy, shaggy mane. His red-orange aura of magic surrounded a handsaw that reciprocated and ate away at the wood 2x4 as he held it in place with his hooves. On his flank was an icon of two crossed saws. The other one was a ashen Pegasus with a short ebony mane. He was studying two blueprints on a collapsible table, wings folded. His key mark was a hammer and nail. The wooden plank that the former was cutting fell to the ground, cleanly cut, with a hollow clatter. It was only then when he noticed the tall newcomer, followed by the town's librarian. He rested his saw on a bench and walked over to greet them. Hey, he hailed in a smooth, carefree tone. His red-orange eyes, the same color as magic, naturally were set in a calm demeanor. This was a pony who obviously had little to worry about, living a peaceful, fret-free lifestyle. Hello, Twilight politely returned. I heard we were getting a new dude here. The new dude here. He glanced up at Ellis, not surprised by his appearance. He was at yesterday's town meeting, like every pony else. He held out his hoof. Name's Sawdust. He even took a gesture into his hand. Ellis, nice to meet y'all. Sawdust nodded to his winged companion, who was still engrossed in the blueprints. That's Ballpeen. He's kinda in the zone right now. Construction Colt turned around and sucked in a big breath of air. Hey, Peen! What? Ballpeen looked as if he's just been splashed with cold water. Startled, he involuntarily flapped his wings, causing his blueprints to fly off the table. He sighed. What is it, SD? We got the new guy here, man. Oh! He flew over to meet Ellis at head height and shook his hand. Ballpeen. Nice to meet you, he replied. The boss ain't here right now, Sawdust explained. We just doing some warm-up work here. You made it here early, dude. That's good. Boss gets pretty cranky when we get here late. Don't worry about it too much. Twilight cleared her throat. Okay then. I see that everything is in order. I'm sure you can take things from here. He nodded slowly. Sure deal, miss. No. Sure deal, miss. Me and Valpine get him up to speed on everything. Well then. He turned to Ellis. Mary wants me to check up on you sometime during the day. She will be back around... So I'll be back around lunch. Good luck. Thanks, Twy. He waved at her tiny assistant off as they head back to the library. Ballpeen hovered up to Ellis with a hard hat. Safety first, man. He took the helmet and adjusted it to his cranium. It was a tight fit, considering it would usually fit on a smaller head of a pony, but it wasn't glaringly uncomfortable. Ready to get going, boy? Bro? Sawdust inquired. Ready, Freddy? It's probably completely yet another lap around the library, her hair beginning to frizz as a sign of frustration. Spike followed her with his eyes as she continued to fret. They both just returned to the library, and the Lavender Unicorn was already back to her routine worry warding. The draconic assistant sighed. Princess Celestia hasn't written back to me. She usually answers my letters immediately. What could have gone wrong? She said with a non-quite-so-indoor voice. Spike massaged his sensitive ears. You're worrying over nothing, Twy. I'm sure she's... His scaly purple cheeks puffed outwards before injecting a green gout of flame with a belch. It spun into a tight sphere before materializing into a slightly luminescent scroll of parchment. Twilight sighed in relief. Oh, what the heck is up with that timing? Spike desperately asked, no pony in particular. This can't be a coincidence. The letter was levitated in front of of the unicorn's face as she broke the seal and unfurled the paper. Inside was quail scribbled lettering, obviously, but it was penmanship that she did not recognize. Her eyes scanned lines of the letter. Dear Twilight Sparkle, we despair that our sister is indisposed in Philadelphia at the moment on business of the highest importance, from which she cannot take leave, temporary or otherwise. Thy letter hath been forwarded from Dearest, which became known to us but few short moments ago. Our sincerest apologies for lack of haste. Yon events are quite intriguing indeed. We can only offer but a word of acknowledgment. Royal duties hath left us with little time to spare. Our sister hath utmost faith in the abilities of thee, as do we. Royal Princess of the Night, Luna. Twilight sighed. Princess Celestia was just happens to be gone from something extraordinary chances. What's it say? Spike raised himself to his toes to get a better glimpse of the letter. It's Luna, Spike. Princess Celestia is busy in Philadelphia, and we apparently won't be back. She apparently won't be back for a while. She carefully re-rolled the parchment and archived in her desk. So what do we do now? We stick to the mayor's plan. Simple as that. Twilight reassured. There's nothing complex about this whole situation. We just need to watch Ellis and keep him from doing anything incredibly stupid. Check out her hot flank, Ellis. Beauty's in eye of the beholder, Sal. Go for it. Sawdust inhaled a breath and cupped his hooves around his mouth. Yeah, baby, I like a piece of that. Ellis accompanied his shout with a sharp whistle. The passing mare blushed profusely before turning her head and trotting away in a huff. Ellis and Sawdust high-fived. I guess you aren't so bad after all, dude. The human gave a hand wave. I'm a pretty likable guy, if I do say so myself. The two were currently working on trimming lumber to repair the beams on the roof. The construction pony had commented that Ellis had a knack for using a handsaw. The human had used only one before. He told Sawdust that he worked on a brief stint in a similar job before he became a mechanic. As the Oshiri unicorn would find, hands work just as well as magic. They both would cut the planks when Balpine would fly them up to the roof where they would be hammered in. Their work was progressing nicely, faster than usual, one might add. So Ellis and Sawdust would pass time cat calling to passing mares while the Pegasus put nails in the roof. Saw, Ellis had asked. Why do you workers cat call anyway? Construction workers cat call anyway. The pony leaned back on the sawhorse. Glad you asked, bro. You see, back in ye old times, construction was a job passed down from father to son. With that came the Masonic tradition of catcalling. It was custom for the workers to commend mares for their beauty, and that turned into what we have today. Wow, really? Nah, I'm just made that up. They both shared a bout of ruckus laughter. The unicorn called out towards the unfinished roof where rhythmic tapping would be heard. Hey, Balpine, you almost done up there? The tapping stopped for a moment, and his achromatic co-worker poked his head into sight. Almost, he called back. His hammering resumed. Sawdust nodded and nudged Ellis's arm. You're doing good, man. Wish we had you with us sooner. Just glad to do my part here. He took off his hard hat and shook the perspiration out of his hair. Kinda wish was working on cars, but beggars can't be choosers. This line of work ain't so bad. The pony lazily nodded and gazed off in the distance, glazing over the town and its citizens for no particular reason. Suddenly his eyes perked up. It's the boss, man! Quick! Act like you're working. He levitated a plank tape measure and carpenter's pencil to set it, measuring the wood. Ellis stood over him, ran in places on the blueprints as if he were directing the cuts. An earth pony trotted over to the pair. He was as big as Big Macintosh, maybe bigger. His coat was a dark brown with a diamond-shaped patch of white around his nose. His nose, with graying mane, and was shaven within an inch of his scalp. His light green eyes were narrowed and looked as if they had been that way all his life. On his leg was a cue mark depicting 3 bricks and a pail of mortar. "Morning, boss," Sawdust waved nonchalantly. The boss only scowled as he looked at Ellis. "All 3 of you, front and center," he boomed with a exercised shouting voice. Ellis and Sawdust zipped into place in front of the boss, their bodies stiff as boards. Balpine took a little longer to get place, as Ellis has in so far observed. It took the pigs a little longer to do everything. The hard-hatted trio stood in line as they came under the scrutinizing gaze of the boss. He slowly paced back and forth, his eyes scanning for even the tiniest mistake. Suddenly he whipped around and glared at Sawdust, like any pony would. He flinched a little, but his expression remained unchanged. There was a pause as the boss continued to stare. Then he spoke. "Have you been working hard, showing the new guy the way we do things around here?" His voice was slightly hoarse. "Yeah, big boss, sir," Sawdust replied. "And has he been doing work hard, too?" "Yes, big boss, sir." He turned to Balpine. "Can you vouch for the same slow-mo?" "Yes, sir, big boss, sir," he stammered. Finally, big boss turned to Ellis, his neck craning up to look at his mug. "And you, what's your name, huh?" "Ellis." "That's sir to you." "It's Ellis, sir." He stiffened himself as straight as he could. "Listen here, Ellis, I don't care if you're some kind of space alien superhero king of the galaxy here. Here you will show respect to me. Here you will work hard and earn your own keep. Pony or not, you follow my rules. You won't get any special treatment from me. Do I make myself clear?" "Yes, sir, yes, sir," he shouted back, sweating. Big Boss took a moment to gauge the progress on the roof. Whether it satisfied him or not, Ellis couldn't tell. He still kept a scowl that never seemed to leave his face. "I expect this roof to be done by the end of today. The world won't wait for you to get your flanks in gear. We got 5 more roofs and 7 more wall sections to repair by the end of this month. He paused to catch his breath and looked over at the 3 one last time. "Now carry on." With that, he walked to his office trailer and slammed the screen door. Sawdust and Balpine both exhaled a sigh of relief. Ellis did likewise, resting his hands on his knees. He's never been through basic, but he was pretty damn sure that was what it would be like. "Is he always such a hard ass?" Okay. Unicorn shook his head. "Nah, this is just a bad day for him. He just got contracted with more work since another repair team bailed. Paperwork makes him like that. He's usually a pretty easy guy as far as that goes." "Damn." "Don't worry, man. Me and Balpine have been working with him for a long time. We know his routine, so we'll give you a heads up when he comes around." Balpine flew off to return to his work on a roof while Ellis and Sawdust trimmed more lumber and whistled at more passing mares. Felicia wrapped her hoof on the door again for what seemed like the 100th time today. Next to her stood Rarity, who tried to call inside once again. "Pinkie Pie, stop being so dreadfully difficult and come out!" Pinkie called out from inside the room. "Go away! Big scary knife monster's out there!" Rarity sighed. "Pinkie, he's not a monster, and the knife is hidden now. There's absolutely no reason for you to be afraid, other than his awful attire." A pause. "No!" "Pinkie," Felicia tried. "Ellis is really nice, and I'm sure he wants to meet you. The only thing he's gonna meet is his face with some cake if he ever gets near me." Felicia flinched. That was really harsh coming from Pinkie. There's no need to get violent, dear." Rarity spoke. "Please, you're acting irrational. What has he ever done to you? It's not what he did, but what he's going to do." Came another angry cry from the room. Fleshy face so ironic, really the uber-phobic peasant trying to help her friend, who happened to be the least scared of anything, get over some silly irrational fear. Now she knew how her friends feel about her. Was she really even that difficult? Pinkie Pie cowered under her bedsheets, slowly munching on her secret stash of Nightmare Night candy that the cakes told her not to keep in her room. She kept them anyway. She knew that Ellis was no good. She knew it in her gut. A new pinky sense combo came up after she locked herself in her room. She didn't recognize it. It was completely new, but she could tell it meant trouble. The kind of trouble that is really, really bad. And she was certain Ellis had to do something with it. Hoof tapping, frizzy maned, going wall-eyed for exactly 4.5 seconds, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and then a mid-air barrel roll, suddenly angry at rabbits and pressing Z buttons. She had an excellent sense of smell, one of the reasons why she was so good at cooking, and she discovered during her time in Ponyville every pony had their own unique smell, a scent that usually came from their professions or homes. Twilight smelled like dust and old books. Applejack resonated the scent of, you guessed it, apples. Rainbow Dash, rain clouds. Rarity smelled like glue. No offense to her, but Taylor's glue stinks. Fluttershy either smells like flowers or animals. It varied day to day. And Dominic, Pinky really didn't even want to breathe around him. Any pony could sniff him from a mile away. Ellis, to Pink's, he reeked of blood. The next few hours of Ellis's job passed without a hitch. He and Sawdust sawed more planks, and Balpine brought them up and nailed them to place. They were making good progress and predicted that they would have the beams and plywood covered done by lunch. After that, they could reshingle the roof, and the interior work would be passed off to another team of Pegasi. The team slackened their pace a bit to relax, only going back when Big Boss came around. Ellis realized that Sawdust was right. He didn't think any other living creature could be more routine than Boss. Incredibly predictable, right down to a few seconds. He would go out to buy coffee at nearby stand for exactly 10:10, have a conversation with the coffee pony for 7 minutes, and be back by 10:22. Then he would shut himself in the office trailer until 13 minutes before lunch. Balpine goofed off with a few planks again, so he had to go and work on his own for a while. The saw team trimmed the last of the beams and waited for Bean to yank out some nails and replace them. They were still on track, though. The Pegasus botched up was nearly commonplace. He would let his mind wander off, miss a nail, and frantically worked to rectify his mistake. Sawdust didn't mind. Neither did the boss, as long as he didn't know too much. Balpine was still an excellent worker. Sawdust excused himself due to the call of nature and cantered off to the portable restroom. Ellis leaned back on the side of the house, watched the ponies pass by. Some of them waved, and he waved back. He was getting used to the attention. A figure appeared in the sky. Ellis shaded his eyes with the sun squinting in the distance. He saw a speck of cyan followed by a stream of technicolor streaking. It seemed to be progressively larger as it came closer to the construction site. Ellis remembered that it was the Pegasus from yesterday. Rainbow Dash decelerated to a listening speed and tentatively hovered to the human side. She didn't want to have a confront him after what happened yesterday, but it was all she could think of to get another glimpse of those hands. Yes, her ears were still eating at her from the inside. She barely slept at all last night, her fantasies running a tight, frantic race around her mind. It made her cheeks burn with guilt. Her heart throbbed noisily in her chest as she got closer to him. A cyan Pegasus rubbed her hooves together as she tried to force a word greeting out of her mouth. Hey. Hey, Ellis replied with a wave. He certainly wasn't making any easier for RD. I just wanted to look at his face, not his hands, to say that I'm sorry for you yesterday. Ellis couldn't recall the reason why Dash would be sorry for yesterday. Think nothing of it, man. Rainbow felt the tension melt off her back. At least he was fine with it, so she could forget about this whole thing. He resumed watching the streets, not paying any attention to the awkward flyer. She couldn't see the harm in merely observing at the moment. Her eyes trailed back to his flexible appendages. Hey, Dash, is it? He asked suddenly. She broke from her trance. Yeah, Rainbow Dash. The human pointed to a mare oh no! Mare off across the street. It was Carrot Top, if she remembered correctly. Her distinctive carrot key mark sat on the side of her yellow flank. Her voluminous orange mane curled over her neck. He was currently conversing with another pony running a flower kiosk, her lips moving soundlessly from the distance as she gestured with her hoof to a brilliant colored plant. she would. Why would Ellis be pointing at her? On a scale of 1 to 10, how much of a hottie is she? Artie was dumbstruck for a moment. The question took her completely off guard. What? I mean, I wouldn't really know, being a human and all. I just want to know so I can get a good frame of reference for a game me and Sawdust be playing. She still couldn't believe what she was hearing. Dude, what? She repeated. Come on, man. Just a number. All I'm looking for. 1 being hell no, and 10 being hot damn. How am I supposed to know that? Man, all guys should have a rudimentary hotness scale. Just give me an approximation. Don't be shy. Rainbow Dash's face could not convey any visualization closer to the image of complete and utter stupefaction than the expression she wore at that very moment. You thought I was a guy? Alice looked at her. She was fuming, but he still raised an eyebrow. You're not? I'm a girl! She looked visibly stricken, nearly stumbling backwards to catch herself. Whoa, shit! He shook his head. That just shatters my entire reality. I really had no idea you act so much like a guy. He glanced back at her. He ignored the red veins of pure fury bulging from her neck. He didn't notice that what looked like a hot steaming pipe out of her nostrils, the fact that she was grinding her teeth together and barely restraining blood-curdling rage, did not even occur to him. Instead, he had made vague circling motions with his hands. When he retold the story, he could claim that he didn't exactly make them to mean anything, and said, you wouldn't happen to be one of them girls that, swing the other way? Help! The denizens of Ponyville only once again opened their doors and window shutters to see a bipedal creature hollering at the top of his lungs, running faster than anyone could have guessed. Behind him tailed a red-faced Pegasus. Rainbow was shrieking behind her as she chased the human at impossible speeds. Some ponies were scared. Some were confused. Some sighed because they knew the mental ward would be stuffed with even more loonies. Get back here so I can beat on your skull till I hit tonsils. I'm sorry, man. I mean, girl. Don't go and kill me. Real freaking smooth, Ellis.